right, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We are back with another installment of Bold Chats number 8, and today we have John Rojak with us. We're just again going to do some brief introductions. My name is Rebecca Carew, and I'm one of the founders of Brass Out Loud. Brass Out Loud was founded after multiple conversations regarding the lack of inclusivity and diversity that we see in a lot of these brass seminars, and we decided that we wanted to kind of, take a hold of that and make the change to see more inclusive faculty and members, and have this be a safe space for everybody. So without further ado, Melissa, can you just run down our faculty for us and introduce yourself?
For sure. Thank you for the handoff. My name is Melissa Munoz. I'm a trumpet player and educator currently based in Austin, Texas. I'm also a student at the Colburn School. I'm super excited to be a part of this. Today I'm just going to give y'all a brief rundown in score order of the faculty we have at Brass Out Loud's workshop this January. Beginning with trumpet, we have Dr. Rachel Simayoa, Jennifer Marotta, Kiku Collins, Billy Hunter, Chloe Rowlands, Rodney Marsalis, Breon Borden, Megan DeJarnett, and Miss Kate Amrine, our very own. On horn, we have Alex Shuhan, Jeff Scott, Jeff Nelson, Julie Landsman, William Purvis, and Miss Rachel Jenkins. On trombone, we have Nicole Abisi, Mr. John Rojak, who we have today with us, Martin McCain, and Abby Conant. And finally, for tuba youth, we have Reginald Chapman, Carol Yonch, Chanel Crislow, and Charles Villarubia. So really great lineup. So excited. Now I'll pass it over to Kate.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Amrine. I'm a trumpet player and educator based in the New York City area. I do a bunch of different things as a performer in normal times. And in COVID times, I'm sitting here in my chair and doing a lot of practicing and recording. I'm super excited about Brass Out Loud, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our schedule. I think there's been some common misconceptions about who we are and what we're doing here at Brass Out Loud, and I want to clear those up. So Brass Out Loud is a series of masterclasses in which you, yes, you and your students or your students, everybody will get to play. There's going to be warm-up classes led by all of those amazing faculty that Melissa mentioned. There's going to be performance classes led by John Rojak and other amazing people. So you're going to get to play and warm up with the faculty. You're going to get to play for the faculty in the performance master classes and hear other people play, give feedback, all of that good stuff. You're going to play in the improvisation workshop led by Chloe Rowlands, and you're going to do some yoga with Breon Borden. It's going to be awesome. So basically our schedule is running from 10 to 3 for January 8th, 9th, and 10th. It's going to be really fun. Registration closes January 7th, so please get on that if you haven't already. And I believe today is the last day of our Kickstarter. Is that right? Yeah. So it could not be a more perfect day. Very exciting. Please contribute and share if you are able. Any amount helps, and we're going to be using any extra funds that we raise to go towards next year's workshop as well. And a brief thank you to our sponsors, who all of this would not be possible without. So thank you so much to Yamaha, Shires, and Eastman. Thank you to Robinson's Remedies. Thank you to AR Residents for sponsoring a masterclass, and thank you to In Memory of Manas Valaru for donating as well. So thank you so much, everybody. Please register, please donate, and then without any further ado, welcome John Rojak. Thank you for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing as a musician and who you are for anyone who might not know you?
Hi, yes, hi. Nice to see all you great people. I was brought up in Stoneham, Massachusetts, which is a town that was known for the great professional wrestler Killer Kowalski, the figure skater Nancy Kerrigan, and me. It's a small town just north of Boston that favors sports. So they have leagues for hockey for 4-year-olds, and everybody plays sports, and the music program was sort of overlooked. And somehow I wound up, because my parents told me to to take an instrument, I had to, there was just a given, what instrument do you want to play? I said, guitar, of course. My mother said they don't offer free guitar lessons, pick something else. So I said, okay, trombone. So I played the trombone. My friends made fun of me because of the big case I had to carry to school. And, years went by, and finally, when I was about a junior, I thought, well, I'm going to go to college, and do I really want to study and write papers and, do math equations and all that? Or if I were in music, if I played in band, I could be a music major, and that sounds like more fun. So maybe I'll do that. Coincidentally, around that time, I wound up with a teacher in Boston named John Coffey, who was incredible, and taught me how to play the trombone. I started practicing more because I knew to get into college, you needed to audition. When I was a senior in high school, I got into the youth orchestra in Boston. That changed my life, hearing that music, sitting in the middle of an orchestra and playing Gabrielli with the brass players. I thought, this would be amazing if I could do this for the rest of my life. So I decided that would be fun. I auditioned for some colleges and got rejected from most of them. I got my letter from Indiana University and Lowell State College, which was my safety school, on the same day. A big fat one from Lowell and a skinny one from Indiana. And I thought they probably wouldn't send a rejection letter in a big fat letter. So I was accepted to Lowell, rejected from Indiana, rejected from a couple of other places. And it sort of made me mad. And I thought, I better practice more. So I started practicing more. And in college, in my freshman year, I switched to bass trombone. I had heard, and actually it was an opportunistic move because there were two bass trombonists in the school, and as a tenor trombonist, I was placed in the second band on second trombone. I just wasn't happy there. One of the bass trombonists graduated in December, and so there was an opening in the symphony orchestra on bass trombone. I said, I'd rather play in the symphony orchestra or the wind orchestra. There was the two top ensembles there. So I want to be in a top ensemble. I switched to bass trombone, and that in combination with practicing 4 hours a day, suddenly I started getting better. I learned the amazing correlation between practice and improvement, and practiced a lot, started getting interested in music more, started playing some gigs, augmenting high school musicals, doing whatever it did. I also was playing with a lot of amateur groups, which I think informed the rest of my life, because I was playing in big bands and concert bands with people who were auto mechanics and lawyers and fish salesmen, all sorts of stuff. And they played music because they loved to play music, not because it was their living. And that's sort of that stuck with me, that you play music because you love music. And I still play because I like playing. And then when I started getting paid to play, it was still, this is crazy. I did what I was going to do anyhow, and someone paid me. How strange and cool. Really great. After 3 years at Lowell, which there wasn't much to do other than practice, I transferred to vocational school, which some people refer to as Juilliard, in New York, and spent another 3 years there. So I had even as someone who really wasn't excited about college, spent 6 years finishing my undergrad. But by my last year in Juilliard, I had started working in New York. I was subbing on Broadway shows and playing recordings and concerts in Lincoln Center and Carnegie Hall, and then entered my career. So is that good for my upbringing?
Yes, that is incredible. I loved the correlation between practice and improvement. I too have learned that very recently. So moving on, you have been in the American Brass Quintet since 1991, and we would love to know about what it's like playing with the quintet, how y'all decide to play new pieces, and how you collaborate with composers.
After I finished school, and I'm actually going to, I'm not a politician ducking your question. I'm not going to answer a different question. I love when they do that, right? You ask a question, and a different question gets answered, and they act like they answered your question. And by the way, for the record, I actually have completed my college rejection masterclass tour. I've given masterclasses at all the schools I was rejected from, and I generally start the class telling the students, hey, look, I didn't get in here. You guys are already ahead of me, and here I am. But after I finished school, I actually started a very busy freelance life. I got my first Broadway show just after I finished school, and was playing concerts, playing sort of, really great New York orchestras, subbing around everywhere, playing my own stuff. But it was interesting that playing 2 rehearsals and a concert in New York, it's sort of amazing the quality that happens, but it's not the same. It's not at the level of an orchestra that plays together all the time, or an ensemble that plays together all the time. So musically it was fine. It was fine. I was having fun. I was making money. But it wasn't really a fulfilling artistic outlook. When the opening came up in ABQ, I actually was really excited about that, and I prepared that audition much more diligently than I had for the orchestra auditions that I had done well, and I obviously didn't land the job in the Chicago Symphony or San Francisco Symphony, but I had always done well in those without really, practicing extras for 6 hours a day. But for the quintet audition, I did. I prepared, I worked hard. It was more important to me because that would sort of solidify my life in New York City. Getting that job and playing in the quintet was fantastic because what Chris Gecker, one of the two trumpets when I joined were Ray Mace and Chris Gecker. Chris Gecker said at one point was with the American Brass Quintet, the more we stayed the same, the more unique we became. And it's interesting, we said the quintet just does the same thing over and over, but the same thing is commissioning new music, finding new editions of early music, and changing our repertoire. So the same thing actually means something different all the time. And the music is challenging, so you have to stay in great shape. I mean, I've really improved. I mean, even recently we had a piece from John Zorn that took me about 4 months to learn. And when we finally performed it, I sent him an email, not of hate, but of saying that I'm a better bass trombone player because of what he wrote. He said he likes to push people to the edge. He writes for people that he knows, and he likes to push them. He knows where they can play, and yeah, I mean, 4 octaves of range, crazy stuff, inserting a mute in a 1-beat rest, which I said, I don't think I can do that, and he explained to me how I could do it, and I could, which is a little embarrassing for a composer to tell the instrument operator how to do something on their instrument they should have known, but he was correct. So playing with the quintet is fantastic. When we get together, and it's been a while now since we haven't been able to get together. We last played a concert in, I think, February. And but sitting down with people dedicated to making music in a small ensemble is wonderful. And the benefits of chamber music, I think, are apparent to anybody who's played, but small group playing informs large group playing. And I came up with a saying, if I ever were to have a Wikipedia list of Rojak sayings, One is that chamber music is everything from, once you have more than one person, up to a 150-piece band, right? You apply those same principles of listening and blending and balancing and good musical citizenship. Certainly touring has been a joy. I've been to so many places that I wouldn't have been to had I not played with the quintet. I have really good airline status, so I can get on the plane earlier and get my horn in the overhead. And the flight attendants are much nicer to me because they understand that I'm a good customer. But yeah, playing with the quintet has been great, and the personnel has been really stable. When I got in, it was the first personnel change in 8 years. The next change came with Kevin Cobb replaced Chris Gecker 8 years after that. And then the next change didn't come for 15 years. And that's when Louis Hanslick and Eric Reed joined. We made those two changes pretty much at the same time, so we wouldn't have to go through photos too often. So it's mostly a musical outlet. It's incredibly gratifying, and also is a higher profile, which allowed me to become a professor at a bunch of different schools, and provided some other opportunities. For commissioning, Melissa asked about our relationship with composers. And interesting, and we've always sought composers. It's funny that when I first got in the group, they told me my first premiere, they told me was going to be Bruce Adolph piece called Triskelion, which is a cool piece. We were going to play at a librarian's convention, which was very confusing to me. I wondered if we're going to have to play really softly. But it turned out it was the Music Librarians Association. They had commissioned it. And we generally premiere 3 or 4 pieces every year. And I know other groups may premiere more pieces and have more commissions, but we actually service the pieces we commission very well. For example, Melinda Wagner said for years, her brass quintet was by far her most frequently played piece. So when we get a piece from a composer, we work with the composer, we find out their intent, we might make a suggestion, especially the trumpets, if, to prevent them from bleeding too much, that maybe there should be a couple more rests in the trumpet parts. Somebody in the group doesn't like really fast mute changes, so we advise about certain things that will make their pieces more performed. And then we tend to record the commissioned pieces. So the composers really do well by the quintet. And we try to serve their purposes best we can. We try to be the representative. Now our two new, and I'm sorry I'm going on too long for the internet, right? The 2 most recent pieces we have commissioned, and these are absolute fresh commissions, are from Anthony Barfield, who was a trombone student of ours years ago at Juilliard, came through, and he's been doing really well. And it's funny because I think your organization is about the diversity and the underrepresentation that's been happening. Anthony Barfield is a composer we would have commissioned anyhow, just that it happens to be currently fashionable, but he was our student. He's become a respected composer. He's black. Great, who cares? He's a composer that we're getting a piece from. We would do it anyhow. We're really excited. He's excited. We're hoping to have that sometime in the late spring. We're hoping to have that piece by summer. Might be a summer premiere. The other commission that I just got the official contract for, which is frightening, I've never seen one of these agreements, is Jennifer Higdon, which I think will be pretty significant piece for the brass community. And that came about really interestingly. The quintet was playing in Bowling Green, Ohio. We played a concert. The next morning, I was getting my complimentary breakfast in the Hampton Inn, and this older couple stopped me and said, "Excuse me, were you in the concert last night?" I said, "Yes, I was." I'm going to try to, always be friendly to everybody. I said, "Oh, we really enjoyed it." So we started chatting. Well, it turns out this couple, I think the building was named after them, where we played. So they were just getting their free breakfast at the Hampton Inn. We're chatting, and they said, "Oh, do you know Jennifer Higdon?" I said, "Well, I don't know Jennifer Higdon, but I certainly know who she is. I've played her music. She's one of the leading composers in America, certainly, if not the world." I said, "Oh, she's a good friend, and I wonder, has she written a brass quintet?" I said, "Not that I know of." I said, "Oh, because maybe we can talk to her and we could have her write a brass quintet." I said, "Great." I said, "I certainly will not stop you from doing that." So she put me in touch with Jennifer. We had back and forth. This is 3 years ago, 2017. Jennifer said, "Oh, she loves these people, the Hansons. They're great friends. She's booked through 2024 with commissions." So 7 years. I said, "Okay, well, if I may not be alive by then, but for the longevity of brass chamber music, definitely put us in the queue." So we had back and forth. As a consolation prize, Jennifer sent a 3-minute brass piece she had written that I don't know if it had been played before. It was part of a brass and organ suite she had written. But this fanfare she sent to us, we read it. We actually made a little, our co-video that maybe some of you saw. We made a boxed video with us riding bikes and cooking and silly stuff. But it's a cool little piece. So we've used that, so we kept in touch with Jennifer and mentioned when we performed it, we played it at a few concerts. Well, one of the apparently good things that came out of the pandemic was about 2 months ago at this point, I wrote to Jennifer saying something about the video and her fanfare, and she said, "Oh, I've been meaning to write to you because of the pandemic, I got ahead in my writing. And now I have time to fit in the brass piece." So she said, "Are you guys still interested?" Well, duh. Yes, of course. But she also had an inquiry from a quintet in Australia who was also interested in. So anyhow, we've got a small consortium, a group in Australia at the University of Melbourne Conservatory, which is excellent. And American Brass Quintet are co-commissioning this brass quintet from Jennifer Higdon, which will be delivered, I think, in April of 22. So in a year and a half, which, who knows, might be our next concert, we'll have a premiere from Jennifer Higdon, which I think is a very fantastic thing, because we've always been trying to get pieces from the great composers of our time. Sorry, that was a super long answer.
No, that was awesome. I love Jennifer Higdon's music, and I also love that fanfare quintet. So if anyone's watching, please check it out, because that piece is amazing. I also love that story that you shared about how you sort of became in contact with her, because I feel like everyone always has an experience like that. And I've had a couple, and whenever I'm in the moment, I'm just like, oh, this is hilarious. Like, this person is never going to hook me up with this other person. Like, that's totally never going to happen. Like, thank you so much, but like, I'm going to laugh now. And it totally works. And it's just amazing, like, how we always meet people in these weird ways. Yeah, it's just like inspiring and cool to know that, your next opportunity could just be right around the corner. and all of that. So I love that so much.
And I don't know if Rebecca and Melissa, you know that Kate and I have a history. Um, Kate was the boss of me when I started working at NYU because they they gave me the job as director of brass studies and didn't tell me what to do. They said, "Congratulations, you're the director of brass studies." I said, "Okay, cool. What do I do?" "Well, you'll have the brass choir, you'll have brass piano rep class, you can have students, you can change the faculty, you can fire everybody, you can hire new faculty, and you have program meeting." So, okay, great. So Kate was my assistant. She played for me, and she seemed like she sort of knew her way around the building. And I said I need an assistant, and Kate said she could be my assistant. And I said, "Really?" I said, "Okay, what do I do?" And so she told me what to do, and kind of
Aw.
saved my first year or two.
On brand for Kate. She's very
Yeah.
helpful.
Well, one of the things I did really try to impart in the students, because I used to busk a lot when I was in school, was to never phone it in, to never take anything lightly. When I played, like augmenting the high school pep band at Horace Mann up in Riverdale, I was playing the other two ringers, like the horn player, I had done a jingle with the day before, and I knew why I was augmenting the Horace Mann pep band for pocket change in the rain in Riverdale. But this horn player, who was a studio musician, was doing it too, and I said, "Why are you here?" He said, "Because it's a gig." And I had to sound great. I mean, I wanted to sound great because this guy's, and John Stevens, the tuba player, who was just recently retired at University of Wisconsin-Madison, phenomenal musician. We were the ringers. So of course I'm going to sound good. Playing in the park, there were times when we got offered wedding gigs. I mean, if you're blowing off the job and, not sounding good, you're not going to get that. You never know. You never know who's listening. I heard a story recently of a flute player who played in a nursing home, right? And one of the tough ones, people in wheelchairs, and falling asleep. We've done that. She played her recital, took it seriously. It turned out that one of the people in the audience was Dorio Anthony Dwyer, who was basically the first woman wind player in a major symphony orchestra. She was the flute player in the Boston Symphony. And they told her afterwards that, said, "Do you want to meet her? And by the way, she's never stayed through a whole concert. She always listens for a minute and then goes away because she can't stand it." And she listened to the whole recital. So you just never know what's going to come of anything, any chance encounter.
That's so heartwarming. I love it. Not to change the subject, but we are wondering, and you mentioned a little bit about being in the pit and playing on Broadway, but how did you get to be in the pit for Les Mis? And then how was your experience doing it for so many years?
Well, it's sort of one of those, and I'm sorry, do we have unlimited time? Good. I was living on 71st Street when I'm going to get to Les Mis, I promise. I was living on 71st Street, and I was aware of Broadway, of course, as everybody living in New York is. I went to Broadway shows occasionally, and I knew about the show Sweeney Todd, right, which is incredible. And there was, on my block, I used to see this super energetic guy carrying a bass trombone, Dean Plank. But I never met Dean, because he walked really fast. So I didn't want to say, "Hey, stop, hi, I'm so-and-so, why? Why should I bother him?" But he walked, I saw him on my block. He lived in a nice brownstone down the street from where I was. And I was in school. I was supposed to be allegedly doing some schoolwork, but I was really mostly just practicing and playing in ensembles. Well, the Los Angeles Philharmonic came to New York to play, and I think they always played Navy Fisher, which you may now know as David Geffen Hall, or whatever it's called now. And Jeff Reynolds was the bass trombonist, and I had heard of Jeff Reynolds. He had a solo album that was really great, one of the first bass trombone solo albums. I wanted to take a lesson with Jeff. Jeff was really good friends with Dean and was staying at Dean's place. So I called Dean's house to talk to Jeff. I took a lesson with Jeff. Jeff told Dean I sounded good. Dean said, "Would you be interested in subbing on Sweeney Todd?" First of all, what kind of question is that? Of course. Oh my God, yeah. So what do I do? He said, you come to the theater, sit in the pit, you watch the show go by, and then it was very different then. Now it's a whole thing of you get the DVD or whatever, you watch the conductor, you play along, you get the music, you practice for a month, and then you sub. Then you sat in the pit one night, and then the next night you played the show, basically. So I played, and I did well. The section was two legends. Jack Gale, who you may know from arranging, I guess his most popular arrangement is West Side Story for quintet, or Porgy and Bess for quintet, but Jack was a fantastic trombonist. He's an incredible trombonist. And Jim Pugh was legendary trombonist, jazz trombonist, was the other trombonist. So that's my section, Jack Gale and Jim Pugh, and Juilliard student. Incredible. So I did well, so I got to play that a few times. And then I'd become friendly with Sam Palafian, and he was, oh no, that didn't happen yet. I played a jingle with Alan Raff, who was a very legendary studio musician in New York, bass trombonist. And again, I was still in school. We were playing a McDonald's jingle, which I thought was going to, pay for my house, because the jingle hadn't changed for 5 or 6 years, and you get residuals every 13 weeks, and we did a whole bunch of spots. But they changed the ad campaign about 7 weeks later, so I didn't get any residuals. But it was a jingle. Alan Raff was the other trombonist. And as we're playing, he said, "Hey John, you play tuba at all?" I said, "No." I said, "Really, you don't?" I said, "No, I never played one." I said, "Okay." So we played, ba 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 da. Played the jingle again. Next break, he says, I said, I actually had a tuba student once. I've taught tuba, but I've never actually played one. I said, "Okay." So as the hour went by, he kept asking me about it. He said, "Because I'm playing a show called Sugar Babies, and I have a bass trombone and tuba." I said, "Yeah, well, I don't play the tuba." And he said, "Okay, well, would you be interested in subbing?" I said, "Yeah, of course I'd be interested in subbing, but I don't play the tuba." He said, "Okay, well, why don't you come down, sit in the pit, and see what you think?" I said, "I'd love to sit in the pit and watch you play. That'd be great." So I went down on a Tuesday night and watched him, and the first page was bass trombone. Okay, no problem. He turned the page, picked up the tuba, and it was like a circus march. And I thought, well, there's no way. It would take me 6 months to learn how to play this, to even start to learn how to play it. I don't play the tuba. I understand the valves, but I don't play the tuba. So he played it, and it was really cool because the band was unbelievable, really great band. And again, legends in the pit. Startling, who was in that pit. For example, the lead trumpet player was Jimmy Maxwell. I don't know if Kate probably knows Jimmy Maxwell, who he was. Played with everybody, everywhere. Benny Goodman's band. Amazing. I was sitting right in front of his bell, and I was sort of partially deaf for the next 2 days, but it was worth it. Huge sound, amazing player. At intermission, Alan went to the contractor and said, I'm going to be off tomorrow night. And the contractor said, okay, who are you going to send for a sub? And he says, how about John? And I said, oh. And I had learned that you never say no. So I said, okay. Well, the next day, I probably had something in school in the morning. No, I had a New York City Opera rehearsal in the morning. I may have even had a class. I had something. Anyhow, I got to the theater at 6:30 before the 8 o'clock show and tried to learn to play the tuba between 6:30 and 7:30. So I played the show really badly. And the conductor told Alan when he got back, he said, it was terrible, the tuba playing was terrible. I don't want to see that guy again. Alan said, he's really great, let's give him another chance. I told Alan, look, I can't, I don't want to play the tuba. I'm going to take my chances on bass trombone. About 5 months later, Alan called me. I think he was really desperate for subs because back then people didn't double. He was really desperate. He said, okay, today's Monday. On Saturday, I'm going to be sick for both shows. Because then you didn't have the substitute rule in the contract. You weren't allowed to send subs so much. I'm going to be sick for both shows Saturday. Do you want a sub or not? And I was coming to the end of school. I was going to be out. I needed to start working. I said, all right, I got 5 days to learn to play the tuba. I'll do it. So I went to the theater every day, practiced his tuba. When I got to the show, because the conductor had also said to Alan that my tuba playing was terrible and my bass trombone playing was weak, which got me mad a little bit. So when I got to the show, I played the tuba okay, and I played the bass trombone as loud as I could, which horrifyingly made the conductor say that I was the best bass trombone player he ever heard. Really? Because I played loudly? I mean, are you kidding? Anyhow. Fast forward to months after that, Alan quit. Alan was very busy. He was playing jingles all the time and was very busy in the rest of the world. And Alan left the show, and I took over the chair, and the show ran 2 more years. So I was suddenly an established Broadway player. When that show closed, I was subbing on a bunch of shows, particularly Cats, where one of the major contractors on Broadway was playing saxophone. When Les Mis came in, actually Les Mis and Starlight Express were coming in at pretty much the same time. So a new Andrew Lloyd Webber show, who, Andrew Lloyd Webber, from Jesus Christ Superstar, for me, whatever he did after that, he still had the golden ticket, because I think Superstar is really incredible. So I forgave him for some of the other ones he wrote. When the contractor called, I actually was hoping, he also was the contractor for Starlight Express, I was hoping he was going to offer me Starlight Express, but he didn't. He offered me Les Miserables, which I thought, how could you write a musical out of Les Miserables? Victor Hugo, 1,400-page novel. Are you kidding? It's bizarre. Fine, okay, so I'll play a show for a few months, and Starlight Express will go forever. Well, he asked my wife to play French horn on Starlight Express, because apropos to this group, they needed a girl in the band. So she was a girl, and she got a pit, even though she was a phenomenal, Naumburg award-winning horn player, which she had a fantastic time. It was really great. It was her first steady Broadway show, but she had also been subbing at Cats. So I started Les Miserables, and turns out it was different than I expected, and I thought it was going to run from the very first couple of rehearsals. I was predicting 8 years, because it just had all that earmarks, and shows didn't run that long. Like 2 years was a pretty good run. back then, or 5 years was extraordinary. So I was thinking maybe 8 years because it was such a buzz. So it got to 16, and it would have gone longer, I think, had 9/11 not happened. I think 9/11 was the cause for it closing at 16 years, because it sort of ended foreign tourism for a while. But playing, again, I kept thinking of the integrity, and I tried to play for my colleagues first and myself second. And also thinking that you never know who's in the audience. What if I phoned it in one night, one show, didn't play well, and who knows, Riccardo Muti came to see Les Mis for some reason, and that's the night it didn't go well for me. And also made sure my subs were well trained. I also marked my book as clearly as I could, and I tried to play the ink as it was written every night, and I told my students, my subs, please play the ink. That if you play the dynamics, play what's written, you'll be fine, it'll be great, and you'll get more work, because 4 years into the run I got into ABQ, so I was taking off a lot, and there was a lot of work for subs. That's probably why I didn't get another show after that and take off too much. So it was a really great experience. It was what I found out after Les Mis closed after 6 years, and I started subbing, particularly actually my next steady job was the producers for the last 6 months of that show. Basically, pretty much every show was more fun than Les Mis. Les Mis was a great job, really great job, and nice people, good friends, and a great base to have for me to run off and do my other concerts and quintet and all that stuff. But definitely other shows were more fun to playing wise, big band shows and stuff. Did I answer the question that was asked? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that Broadway is so personally interesting to me, because of just how it, like, the ins and outs of it works. It's not like an orchestral audition where you like audition and it's like a yes or a no. It's by like word of mouth. It's by like connections with people. And I think that hearing like you talk about like your life story with your Broadway experience, how you got there, I think it's just so, to me it's just very interesting. I really enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel good. I didn't make any calls. The 2 times that I asked for jobs, I didn't get them. I had worked there's a great Broadway conductor, Paul Gemignani. He was also a contractor. He was the conductor of Sweetie Todd. So I knew him from that, and apparently word got back to me that he liked me. I heard that he was booking West Side Story, one of the many incarnations of it, and I was interested, so I called him. And it was interesting. He was great, actually, on the phone. I said, I'm really sorry to call you, but I wanted to let you know I'm interested in playing West Side Story. If you're looking for someone. And he said, well, it's good you called me, because how else would I know? Well, who wouldn't? I mean, it's a funny question. How would he know? Who wouldn't want to play West Side Story? And he said, well, that's great to know. Of course, you're a great player. Would love to have you. And then hired somebody else. And then another time I mentioned to Jerry Schwartz that I was interested. He was going to record Bourgeois Gentilhomme, the Strauss piece. And Jerry had been my coach, my quintet coach, and I worked for him here and there. And actually he had used me on a recording when I was still in school, and that's how his contractor got to know me, and that contractor booked a lot of other classical stuff. So by playing this strange part on a Bach cantata, recording, he heard me, and there was actually a lot to play, and he needed somebody at the time, so I became his bass trombonist on a lot of the classical freelance jobs. But I asked Jerry if I could play Bourgeois Gentilhomme on the recording, and he said no. Fine. But years went by, the recording got postponed, and I actually wound up playing it eventually, but not because of me asking. So it was nice that my gigs came because people heard me, and then they asked me to do something else.
That's amazing. I really like that. So kind of a little off topic. We talked about it a little bit prior to this conversation. And you were mentioning that you taught at NYU and Juilliard. So I guess my question is, you've taught so many students over the years, and what are some characteristics that you've observed in your students that are admirable and that have helped them have like successful careers like yourself?
I've been accused of being a laid-back teacher, I think. But then it's really interesting. I had an experience a couple of times, and I think because of my manner, that when I say something that maybe is perceived as direct, a couple of times my students have cried, and I was so surprised, so taken aback by that. I think for me, I like working with students at all sorts of levels, because if the student isn't good, there's so much you can do, and the improvements happen so rapidly to get to the next levels, and that's amazing, you know, to show somebody, for example, a correlation between mouthpiece buzzing and playing, and giving them an exercise where you buzz your mouthpiece, you play, you buzz, you play, you buzz, you play, you buzz, you play. Suddenly, their tone is infinitely better in minutes. And the look on people's face, if I get them to free up their tonguing, their articulation. I had a great thing I had a doctoral student at Rutgers who was really tight, and I explained to him the mechanisms of articulation, and he played a simple Arbenz exercise. Bum ba da dun 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 da da dun 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 da da dun dun dun, and he finished playing it, and he had been standing. He sat down on the edge of the desk, stunned. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "That seemed easy." And I said, "Embrace the ease." So to do that is a joy. To take like a very advanced student also is a challenge as a teacher. What do you do with somebody who already sounds fantastic? I had my doctoral student at Hart, who's now the professor at UConn. His first lesson, to check me out to see if he wanted to do his doctorate with me, he was playing a standard trombone concerto, the Grandal, and it sounded fantastic. I came up with an idea, why don't you try this? I'd never heard this passage played this way, and he executed it. And it was a revelation for both of us. It was really cool. So to figure out ways to tweak somebody who's basically playing at a professional level is also cool. So all that stuff. But what I think is that playing with a good sound, in tune, good rhythm, good pitch, and phrasing are a given. I mean, of course we do that. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do those things? It's my job to explain to the student how to do those. But when we're on that path, once you can achieve those to some degree, then not being a jerk is equally as important. I think being a good person, being somebody who when you walk into the room of the rehearsal space, the people that are in the rehearsal space already are really happy to see you. Whether it's because of a bubbly personality, or if you don't say a word, but if the way you play brings something to the table, right? If you're fun to play with, that there's not going to have to be a lot of talk about how do we play this, here's the rhythm's here, right? To just bring all those skills and then not be a drag at the gig. I think that's what I actually had to send a message halfway around the world once, because word got back to me that one of my students who was in Southeast Asia somewhere was being a drag to the section in a pretty good orchestra. So whoever, I think I saw the principal trombonist was a recent Juilliard grad, and he said, yeah, this guy. I said, wow. Well, when you go back to Southeast Asia, tell him I said, don't embarrass me. So, I was putting it on me. Don't embarrass me. This reflects badly on, I was your teacher. And it was only for 7 weeks I was his teacher. It's like it was a truncated summer in Aspen. I said, don't embarrass me. And apparently it worked. And he behaved. And so that's what I would, as teaching legacy, I would like to have all of my students be people that people are happy to see. And also as a teacher, when I started teaching at this level, I was teaching grad students and really good conservatory students, I decided it's my responsibility to answer a question. That if I really try never to say, if somebody plays something, okay, play it again better. I need to explain better. What does better mean? One of my students who was excellent, a really wonderful player, in his lesson one day said, people told me I had a great sound. What does that mean? What is a great sound? What's the definition of a great sound? I asked if I could get back to him by the next lesson, and it took about 5 days to come up with a definition of a great sound, and I think I did. I came back to him and said, I believe a great sound is a sound that has core with a harmonic series above it, so an aura of sound around the core, which is defined by the harmonics that you add to that sound. But that was, it was a question I never heard before. Everybody just assumes what is a great, sounds great, and accepts that. He didn't accept it. So I thought I needed to answer the question. Articulate that differently. Okay, well, how? So I need to explain how. So I've really tried to be able to analyze, and then I advocate to the students to not analyze until it's absolutely necessary, and give them exercises that will address. I'd like to give exercises that address playing issues rather than analyze the issues.
Yeah, that's all super great, and I think that is some solid advice. Number one, you got to check all the boxes, and then my teachers have always told me, got to be a good person, otherwise nobody's going to hire you ever. So thank you for sharing that with our audience. Sort of related to what we're talking about in teaching, we're interested in knowing how your teaching style has changed and adapted due to COVID-19.
Well, over the last few months, it's gotten better. With it got significantly worse at first, in March and April. It was baffling figuring it out, but I actually gave a lesson in person in September at Juilliard. Or no, not, I wasn't back. In November, I gave my first in-person lesson since March. And I actually felt more effective on Zoom at that point because my student had a mask with a flap and a bell cover, and when he breathed, the mask got sucked into his face, and it just felt kind of frustrating. But with this online teaching, I've been just going to my regular principles, and I think if I can sort of tell by the way I see someone producing sound on an instrument. I can tell if someone is relaxed, and to me, if someone looks relaxed, then the production will be more relaxed. I can sort of tell the quality of tone, and can show them the exercise. So I've been doing that a bunch, and I have actually a new student that I picked up recently he's in Oklahoma. And yeah, the improvement is great. So I feel like by doing what we would do in person, you can achieve this similar result. And actually I find even with the difficulties of cyberspace and the delays and the weirdness and sometimes the bad tone and the what I call the internet rubato, when the sound stops for a minute and then it catches up. So weird. Still with that, I feel like I can figure out ways to help people improve, because my overall method is making someone a better player, not a better player for that specific piece of music. Right? And I can give hints of how to make certain phrasings and what might work better, what to try, and give some options. And I also like to give options of phrasing, not say, this is how it goes, because it might not be how it goes. I might not be right. So I'm just hedging my own bets. I don't want to be wrong. So I'll give options, and they can try those. But I think the better one plays, the better one can play anything. So by helping the production of becoming a better brass instrument operator, then one can sing and play the music the way it sounds best, or good. If not best, at least good.
I think that's some really great advice that I think everybody needs to hear, because I've encountered some people who, like, their teacher says one thing and they swear by it. Anything their teacher says, like, goes. That's exactly how I will do it. I will never stray away from my teacher. But I like that you offer options to your students, because one thing that works for one person might not work for somebody else, and one way that one person plays something might not be how the other person kind of perceives it. So I think that it's really wonderful that you offer, like, contrast to your students, saying you could do it this way or you could do it this way.
The problem is, take trombone players, for example. So many students want to sound like Joe Alessi. Well, great. I mean, good luck to you. But Joe Alessi still sounds like Joe Alessi. And if they want Joe Alessi, they can get Joe Alessi if they have enough money. So if you sound like Joe Alessi, why should I get you when I can get Joe? Maybe I want you. Maybe I don't want Joe Alessi. Maybe I want you. I want how you sound, because we heard Joe. Joe sounds amazing, or we had him last year. We want somebody different. You sound like, I suppose you trumpet players could sound like Maurice Andre, because we don't have Maurice anymore, and that would be okay. If anybody wants to sound like Maurice Andre, it's fine with me. But horn players, you want to sound like Jeff Nelson. Jeff still can get the gig. So you sound like yourself. You're bringing something else. And that's, I also, in teaching, I had a funny experience with a student a few years ago. The first lesson, or not the first lesson, but he was my student for a while. He brought in a piece. I said, "What's your solo?" He played his etudes. I said, "Okay, how about your solo?" He said, "Yeah, I'm not really ready to play it. Is that okay?" I said, "Yeah, it's fine." So the next week, "Yeah, I'm not really ready to play it." I said, "Well, it's great. I mean, your etudes sound great. Everything else sounds fine." I said, "Yeah, okay, I'm just not ready." The third week, he said, I don't want to play it yet." I said, "Why? I mean, you've been practicing it, right?" He said, "Yeah, but I haven't been able to find a recording of it." I said, "Well, interestingly, right here on this page, there are these little black things that'll tell you what notes to play, and then there are letters underneath that'll tell you how loud and how soft and things. And there's a thing here, maestoso will give you a clue. So maybe you could learn how to play it." So I said, "Why don't you play it?" And he sounded fine. He sounded excellent on it. And I said, and it reinforced what I have always tried to do, is learn a piece before learning the recordings, so that you have an idea of how it goes in your mind. Then you can listen to a recording and decide, well, I loved what Dennis Brain did here, maybe I'll use that, but wow, this is cool. I like what I did better here than, Dennis Brain is a bad example to use for being able to do anything better, or Herman Bauman, but player X, or somebody's senior recital that's on YouTube, if that's the recording, because apparently that's what people go to now. There's one recording of somebody's, college recital, that's the example to use to learn a piece. Okay. Not that their recitals weren't excellent and fantastic.
Yeah, I get that. I don't know. I have nothing else to say besides this is great advice. Because I think that, again, myself, I've never been someone who always took other people's playing take this with a grain of salt, but when I would listen to other people play, Dennis Brain, Barry Tuckwell, I never ever felt like I had to play it exactly the way that they did. Stylistically, of course, you're going to play Mozart in the style of Mozart. That's a given. But it's kind of what you do with it. For me, I personally, I'd never been the player to sit and say, I want to sound like this person. I want to sound like me. And I think that so many people get wrapped up in, I want to sound like, person X. I want to sound like person X. But exactly like what you're saying. Person X is still here. Why would you not hire them? They're already still here. You should just play like you. And I think that that's really great advice for people to hear, especially I feel now, because now we have so much time to play by ourselves, kind of connect with what we want to do, rather than listening to everybody around us saying, well, maybe I should do that instead.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that reinforcement. Another thing that's, I think, surprisingly rare. Think about this: playing the ink precisely. And what I've thought of at times is, if I'm playing a piece of music, it's on my stand, someone really, really talented is sitting in the audience transcribing it. When they transcribe it and put that on my stand, does it look exactly the same as what I just played? That is incredibly challenging. Just think about that. Did they write mezzo piano when you played piano, or when you played mezzo forte? When you made a tenuto, did they write tenuto? Or did they write legato? Did they write a slur when you meant to have a little separation? Was the phrases marked the way you played them? Was it forte or fortissimo? Was the accent that was a marcato accent, did they write a marcato or a normal accent? So, I mean, playing the ink is incredibly challenging. So I think start with the ink and then bring style to it, bring nuance and changes. And I'd say don't change what the composer wrote until you've learned exactly what he wrote, what he, the composer wrote, and then if you really need to, then maybe you can change something. But exploring an example I'll give is we had a quintet from Wang Ruo. It's Huangruo, Wang Ruo, a Chinese composer. Really incredible piece, really challenging, very difficult. He wrote quarter note equals 80 for the tempo. We practiced and practiced, rehearsed, and we finally got it where we were comfortable at quarter note equals 74. So, okay, that's our tempo. This is 30-second notes for everybody. So we're playing it. Okay, this is where we got it. We took it on tour. We got to know the piece really well, and the piece was really coming alive. It felt much more comfortable. I said, hey, let's just check the metronome on this. Now that the piece feels like we know it better, it sounds right. It sounds right the way we're playing. It was quarter note equals 80 where we had gotten it to. That's where it sounded right. Just, yeah. So we learned the piece the way he wrote it.
That's really awesome. All right. So I'm not seeing any questions on Facebook. I mean, Kate or Melissa, if you see any that I'm not seeing, because I've seen that happen before, anybody watching, if you have any questions for John at this point, now would be the time to drop them. We definitely want him to answer any questions that you might have. So while we ask our last question, if you have any questions, please drop it on Facebook right now. So John, our last question to you, like we've been asking all of our guests and faculty recently, what does your ideal brass community look like to you?
Yeah, I actually read that question 2 or 3 times before I understood it, because I didn't understand it at first, which is actually where I'd like everybody to be, to sort of not understand a question like that. And my brass community looks like a bunch of really nice, fun people who play in tune and in time and sing when they play. And I don't care who they are. And it's funny because sometimes I sound like I'm poo-pooing diversity, this as I say, the obsession with diversity we have now. And then I looked around, particularly at my NYU class, and I thought, oh, well, half my brass choir is women, okay, and half my trumpet section are women. And I would like them if they play, I would like for them to play in tune and in time and beautifully. And, I got them too. And, oh yeah, I've got a couple of Asians. Oh, and I've got, what was Amber? Iranian or Iraqi or something. I've got an Arabian person. And I've got a couple of black students. Oh, wait, I've got diversity here. But I think to look at a group and not think of that you have to stop and think that it is a diverse group would be cool, whether it is or not. And and I hear great playing. It's great playing. Years ago, I wound up on a job with Barbara Butler, the trumpet player, and it's funny, it was actually for Mannheim Steamroller. And I hadn't met Barbara before, and for the first half hour or so, I felt a little scared, because she was, expecting me, I think, to be wishing she were a man trumpet player. But I don't know. If she played in time and in tune, it's fine. And she sounded great. And it became apparent that I didn't, and it was fantastic. I mean, what a great week we had on that gig. And I don't know, it's funny. I don't care. And I don't care if it's a bunch of 80-year-old white men or 19-year-old whatever diverse group, mixed, trans something. If we're making music, I want my community making music. It's always more fun when people are singing and having people doing their best and being into it, right? And even, if the intent is almost as important as the level. If there's people that are surrounded, like if a student came in to a professional group and they're not at that level and they're so excited, they're into it, they rise, and you hear that, it's really cool. I guess I was so fortunate to be buoyed by and that's buoyed with a U, not a chauvinistic buoyed with by the amateur musicians that I played with, who were so supportive of me the whole time, and excited that I was going to go off and be a music major and that I was going to try to be a professional. They were so excited by that this community, I mean, I think, to just focus on brass playing, we're already such a minority that to divvy it up further than that, it's great. It's like when people would meet me and say, what do you do? I'm a bass trombone player. I said, oh, really? You play classical or jazz? I said, oh my God, I'm already so narrow with playing bass trombone. Now I have to narrow it further than that. So I think if we just accept that we're a minority of brass players, think of those string players that look down on us, that we don't have any repertoire, that we can bond together with that. But I think if everybody behaves kindly to one another, and I don't get it. I mean, a revelation for me was being in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, walking down the main drag in Sao Paulo, and thinking that I don't know who's Brazilian and who's not Brazilian on this street. That there were very dark black people, medium brown people, light brown people, white, very white people, people that looked like me, Asian looking people, and everybody besides me could very well have been Brazilian. I don't know. And I thought, wow, this is diversity. I mean, nobody knows and nobody seems to care, which is great. I mean, just we're just people. So nice people who play in tune and sing and play in time and don't drag and don't rush.
I love it.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Oh, Melissa, you go. Oh, okay, never mind. John, thank you so much for your answer. I mean, this question I'm glad that you kind of sat with it and wondered what exactly that we were asking, because this question can be interpreted so many different ways. So thank you for your answer. Everybody has different ones, and we really appreciate yours. I don't see any additional questions on Facebook. So with that being said, we are going to wrap it up for Bold Chats number 8 today. Again, our Kickstarter ends today. If you want to donate, please go ahead and do that. We appreciate any amount that you can possibly contribute. And like Kate said before, this money will go also towards future workshops that we do plan to have. So we are super excited for that. If you want to register, you can register on our website, brassoutloud.com. And again, get your friends to register, come together. We're definitely looking for some more low brass and some more French horns. So we would love to see you there January 8th through the 10th of 2021. with that being said, thank you so much again for being here with us, John, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your Monday. Bye.